The patrol the wind moved slowly across the quiet hills as the sun began to fall behind the clouds above the trees. A strong dog named Rex moved to the tall grass with his nose close to the ground. His ears stood alert and his body stayed low and silent. Behind him walked Tom, a man who once wore armor and carried a weapon for the World Army. Now he lived alone near the outer forest in a small cabin, built with strong hands and quiet dreams. The world had changed since the war began 5 years ago. Unknown ships came from the dark sky with no warning and no signs of peace. They landed with fire and light and broke many cities with weapons the Earth had never seen. Humans fought back and pushed the enemy away from the core lands, but many outer zones still faced danger and fear. Tom left the army after losing friends in a failed mission. He now guarded the edge of Zone 18 where silence felt too loud and peace too. Thin Rex moved faster toward a narrow path between trees, and Tom followed with care. Leaves cracked under his boots, but Rex made no sound. Tom kept his old sidearm close, though he had not used it in months. They reached the small ridge where the forest dipped into a flat valley. From that point, Rex froze. His nose twitched and his tail stiffened in the air. Tom crouched beside him and looked out. Nothing moved at first, but then a weak signal flickered on his handheld screen. A heat source low to the ground glowed faintly at the edge of the trees. Rex gave a low growl and started to walk slowly toward it. Tom whispered, but the dog did not stop through thick brush and dry twigs. They moved until they reached a small open space where the smell of metal and smoke floated in the air. There lay a strange figure curled in pain. Its body shimmered with armor like glass but cracked in many places. Its skin was dark silver and its hands long with 3 thick fingers. The alien breathed hard as if each breath was a struggle. Rex stood close but did not bark. He lowered his head and looked at the creature with wide eyes. Tom stepped forward and raised his weapon. His heart beat louder than the wind. The alien was one of them, one of the invaders who brought pain and fire. His finger touched the trigger, but Rex jumped between him and the creature. The dog growled deep and stood firm. Tom stared in shock. Rex never disobeyed. This was not fear or confusion. This was a choice. The dog saw something in the wounded thing, something Tom did not understand. Alien opened one eye and tried to lift its hand but failed. A soft light blinked on its chest device, and a weak pulse flashed once then faded. It spoke without sound, yet the words rang inside Tom's head like a thought too clear to ignore. I do not want to fight, I want to live. I want to stop this war. The voice was not harsh or broken. It felt real and tired and full of sorrow. Tom lowered his weapon slightly, but his mind spun with doubt. Could this be a trick? Could this be a trap? Could this broken figure really be telling the truth? He looked at Rex. The dog's eyes did not blink. He stood like a stone guarding the weak. Tom knew that if he called command, the alien would be taken and most likely erased. Earth forces trusted no one and treated all enemy life as a threat. Yet here stood a dog trained to smell danger, standing still and calm. The forest around them remained quiet as if even the trees waited for a choice. Tom took a breath and made it slowly. He moved to the alien and lifted it gently over his shoulder. The body was light but warm with heat from a life that had not yet ended. Rex turned and led the way back through the trees, past the ridge across the quiet grass, and toward the hidden shelter built deep under the cabin. No drones flew above, no patrols passed by. No sound but their steps. Tom reached the door and opened it with a code only he knew. The metal door slid away, and they stepped into the dark space below the ground inside. The lights came on with a hum, and the air smelled of old dust and quiet metal. Tom placed the alien on a table and searched for his med kit. Rex sat nearby, still watching the door. That alien opened its eyes again and looked at Tom with a soft light glowing from its skin. "Thank you," voice echoed once more in his mind, but softer. Now like a dream drifting near the edge of sleep, Tom stood still and looked at the strange life before him. He did not know what tomorrow would bring. He did not know if this act was right or wrong, but he did know this: Rex had seen something in the alien that no machine could scan, no soldier could measure, and sometimes the eyes of a loyal friend saw truth. Before the mind could understand it in that moment, Tom chose to listen not to the orders of war, but to the silence of instinct, the pull of mercy, the bond of trust, and so the war did not end that day, but something else began, a path, a shift, a question. Worth asking, what if loyalty could see the future before it arrived? That night the stars above the earth shined as they always had, but deep below, one man, one dog, and one alien waited together for the world to change the decision. The shelter was silent but not empty. The low hum of the machines filled the space with a calm rhythm. Tom stood beside the table, watching the alien breathe with slow, shallow effort. Rex sat at the corner facing the steel door with full focus. The walls around them were lined with old supplies, power units, spare gear, and maps of broken places now lost to war. Tom placed the med kit on the table and opened it with steady hands. He cleaned the alien's wounds with care, though his eyes never left the strange silver skin. The body was marked with deep burns and broken armor. The cuts ran across the arms and side like traces of a blast from close range. Rex watched every movement, but made no sound. His tail stayed low, his eyes locked on Tom, as if waiting for a sign or a mistake. The alien flinched once, as the medicine touched a raw spot, but did not cry out. Instead, it reached weakly toward Tom's arm and placed its hand gently above the wrist. Tom paused but did not pull away. Soft voice entered his mind again, not with sharpness, but with a strange calm. I know you do not trust me. I know your people fear mine, but I ran from them. I saw what they do, what they become in war. I do not want that. I cannot return. Tom stayed quiet as the thoughts passed through him like waves touching the shore, then fading. The alien's name was not made of sound, but something like meaning, something like a shape of feeling, so Tom gave it a name in his mind. He called it Leo, short and simple, something he could say without confusion. Rex moved closer and sat near the table now, no longer guarding the door, but guarding Leo instead. Tom stepped back and leaned against the wall, arms folded, eyes heavy. With thought he remembered the war rooms filled with smoke and steel, the loud voices, the screens showing fire across the sky, the orders to destroy before being destroyed. He remembered faces young and scared and brave, and now here in this quiet shelter stood the choice. No order, no command, no rule, only instinct and doubt. He opened the old COM unit near the shelf and pulled out a blank chip, a storage key with no signal trace. He looked at Leo. Do you have proof, data, something they can't ignore? Something that shows you mean what you say? Leo nodded slowly and lifted a small disc from under the armor near its ribs. It glowed with a faint green light. Tom took it and slid it into the reader. The screen lit up with strange symbols, then shifted into human language, or maps, internal messages, voice logs, hidden camps, names of others like Leo, all marked as traitors, all hunted by their own kind. Tom's heart moved with weight, not fear, but weight, like holding something too big to carry alone. He looked at Rex, who still sat near Leo, his body calm, his eyes steady. The dog had chosen already, without words, without facts, only feeling. Tom turned to the screen again and copied the files to the chip with slow care. Outside, the wind picked up the sensor, lights blinked, the trees moved like shadows dancing under the moon. Time was short, too short. He walked over to a small storage box and opened it, pulling out a pack, a power core, a field shield, and a handheld relay used to link with command towers. Leo watched but said nothing. Tom placed the items on the table and looked straight at the alien. Am not a soldier now, but I know how they think, how they move, how they choose to destroy first and ask later. He picked up the chip and held it tight. This war took too much too fast, and maybe this is nothing. Maybe they still shoot first, but if there is even a small chance to stop it, to change it, I have to try. Rex barked once, sharp and firm, as if to agree. Leo blinked slowly, a soft light pulsing from the skin like a thank you. Tom moved toward the stairs and stopped near the panel. We go at nightfall, we move fast, we use the old trail through the ridge. If we stay low, we reach the signal tower by morning. turned and looked at both Rex and Leo. This is not about saving one life, it is about changing many. The shelter dimmed as he lowered the lights and locked the entry systems. They would rest now for a short while, and then they would move, not as enemies, not as soldiers, but as beings caught between orders and truth, between war and peace, between fear and hope above them. The stars moved slowly across the black sky below them. In silence, 3 lives prepared for the choice ahead. Somewhere in the far distance, machines began to move toward their location, unaware of what truly waited for them. The chase darkness wrapped the forest like a thick blanket as Tom stepped out of the shelter with his pack secured tight across his back. Rex moved ahead with silent paws, brushing over the dirt and fallen leaves. Leo walked slowly behind them, wrapped in a field cloak that hid the glow of his skin and armor. The night air felt cold, sharp, and heavy with danger, but none of them turned back. Tom checked the signal reader in his hand. The path to the old relay tower stretched over rocky ground and deep brush. Most patrols avoided this area due to broken terrain and unstable ground, but Tom knew every inch of it. Rex had trained in this forest since the early days and could sniff trouble long before sensors picked up heat. They moved through the valley past the dry stream where old bones of war machines still lay under vines and moss. Tom kept his eyes forward, his mind locked on the message chip hidden in his vest. That chip held the truth, the kind of truth that cracked lies wide open. Leo moved with slow, careful steps, his breathing shallow. His wounds had closed, but the pain still lived inside his muscles. His kind were strong, but healing took time, and time was the one thing they no longer had. Suddenly, Rex stopped, his body stiff, ears up, nose twitching. Tom raised a hand and crouched low. He pulled out his scanner and saw it. A pulse, faint but close. A scout drone moving through the air above the ridge, silent and fast. Tom grabbed a cloak from his pack and threw it over Leo, pulling him down beside a fallen log. Rex stayed low, his body pressed against the ground like a shadow. The drone passed overhead with no light, no sound, only a soft wave of energy pushing against the leaves. Its scan beam swept the area but missed their exact spot. As it moved away, Tom let out a slow breath and signaled to move again. They crossed through the hollow trail, past the broken fence, once used by farmers, now rusted and forgotten. The tower was not far now, just over the next hill, but something felt wrong. Rex stopped again. This time his growl low and deep like thunder, waiting behind the clouds. Tom raised his scanner, and his eyes narrowed. Multiple signals appeared on the screen. 5 shapes, maybe more, moving fast, circling their position. A strike team. Leo placed a hand on Tom's shoulder, his eyes wide. He spoke without sound again. They found the beacon. It was still active. I could not shut it down in time. They tracked me across the zone. Tom looked around fast. The relay tower was still possible if they moved now, but not all of them could reach it without drawing fire. The enemy would not speak, would not ask, would not wait. They would eliminate targets, then search for what was left. He looked at Rex, who stood ready, tail still, ears locked forward. Then Tom made the choice. He handed the message chip to Leo and pointed toward the path behind the rocks leading to the base of the tower. You go, I cover you. Rex will lead you. Stay low, move fast, reach the uplink, send the message, do not stop. Leo tried to speak again inside his head, but Tom shook his head firm and clear. This is the only way. This is our chance. Go now before they close in. Rex barked once, sharp and brave, and turned toward the path. Leo followed his lead, stepping through the brush fast and light. Tom turned toward the ridge where the shapes moved between the trees. He climbed up a short slope and pulled a flare from his belt. He lit it with a strike and threw it across the open ground. Red fire burst into the dark, lighting the trees with wild color. The strike team shifted toward the light, scanning and spreading formation. Tom fired 2 shots into the air and ran toward the other side, pulling their attention away from the path below. He ducked behind an old stone wall and waited. The enemy moved with speed and silence, but Tom knew this land better. He set 2 charges near the base of a broken machine and slid back through the shadows. Explosions ripped through the ground, throwing heat and smoke into the air. The strike. Team broke formation, confused for seconds that Tom used to escape again. Below in the dark trail, Rex led Leo through tight turns and steep drops. The path narrowed near the edge of a ravine where wind howled between stones. Leo slipped once, but Rex pulled him forward, never letting him fall. At last the tower came into view, tall and black against the sky. The old uplink dish still stood at the top, though rusted and bent from time. Rex ran ahead, scanning the area with sharp eyes. No drones, no teams, no heat signs. Leo climbed the steps slowly, body shaking from pain and pressure. He reached the console and pulled the chip from his belt. The machine hummed, then blinked with blue light as the message uploaded. The words moved fast through the screen, proof of defectors, records of war crimes, maps of hidden camps, plans for future attacks, all stored, all confirmed. Leo watched as the upload reached full, and the system locked the signal to high command. A beacon lit at the top of the tower, shining white across the dark sky. They had done it. Below the tower, Tom ran through the forest, still chased, still hunted, but with a smile hidden behind dirt and sweat. The message was sent now. Everything would begin to change, and it all started with a loyal dog who made a choice without speaking a word. The message, white light from the tower, kept glowing across the sky like a signal from hope itself. Leo stood at the top, watching the waves of data fly through the machine. His chest rose and fell with heavy breath, his body tired, but his mind awake. Rex sat beside him, tail still, ears sharp, eyes watching the shadows. The old metal of the tower creaked under the cold wind, but held strong. Every second the signal stayed alive was a step toward something new. Leo looked at the stars above. The stars that once guided ships of war now watched over a silent message built from truth. Far away in the forest, Tom kept moving through the dark between broken roots and thick fog. His legs ached, his side burned from a scrape, but he moved without pause. Behind him, the strike team split into two groups. They did not speak, they did not stop. They only hunted. Tom reached a wide trench where a fallen bridge lay broken across the gap. He jumped down using an old rope to slow the fall and landed hard on one knee. He crawled under metal beams and waited. The sound of boots echoed above, then faded into the wind. He took out his scanner and checked the tower. Signal still strong. Message still moving. He smiled just for a second at the tower. Leo noticed a warning on the screen. Energy spikes approaching from two sides. Enemy units locking on the source. Time short. Risk high. He turned to Rex, who stood now growling low. Rex moved down the steps, then stopped, looked back at Leo once, then kept going. Leo followed, holding his side and moving fast. They reached the base of the tower and saw shapes in the trees, red lights blinking from rifles, long and silent. Leo touched the console near the base and started the defense field. A low hum grew into a wide blue ring that spread around the tower. The field would hold, but not forever. It needed power and time. In the command center, deep in the capital city, human officers watched the signal appear on their system. The message carried codes that matched lost ships' battle logs, captured zones and names of soldiers marked missing. The voice in the file did not match any known enemy leader, but the tone was calm, clear, full of warning and reason. The council was called at once. Generals sat around the main screen, listening to the message again and again. One name appeared often in the data. A commander from the alien side, known for cruelty, now shown as the reason some defected. Files proved camps built for those who refused orders. Images showed weapons pointed at their own kinda. Decision had to be made. Back at the tower, the field began to flicker. Enemy fire hit the edges like lightning hitting a shield. Rex stood near the door, barking loud, warning Leo of movement on the east side. Leo pulled a small core from his belt and pushed it into the base of the tower. Power surged and the field grew brighter again. Tom arrived near the edge of the tower just as two enemy units broke through the trees. He raised his weapon and fired once, then twice, not to kill but to slow. Rex jumped toward one figure, knocking it down before it could fire. Leo grabbed a fallen blaster and held it with shaky hands. The fight was short but sharp. Smoke filled the air and sparks flew from broken weapons. In the end, 3 enemy soldiers lay still, 2 more fled into the dark. Tom limped toward Leo, checking for wounds. None new. Both still alive, they had held the tower long enough. The signal had reached command. Now the sky above lit with a new kind of light. Earth ships appeared in low orbit, blocking enemy signals. A voice from the tower speaker called out to all units to stand down and wait. The message had reached leaders who saw a different path, now a path that might stop the war. Rex barked once. More this time, not from warning, but from relief. The sound of more human boots came from the trees, but these ones brought no fire. They brought medkits, tools, and orders to protect, not destroy. Leo stood tall as they approached, not hiding, not afraid. He had done what many thought was impossible. He had spoken truth across enemy lines and found ears willing to hear. Tom looked at Rex and placed a hand on his fur. This started because of you, friend, because you saw what we could not, because you listened before we judged. The stars above kept moving slow and quiet, but below them the world had started to change, and a dog, a man, and an alien had turned the page of history with courage, choice, and trust. The turning point. Morning came slow over the hills and the forest, no longer echoed with fear. The smoke had cleared, the wind carried new sounds of voices, calm and clear. The sun touched the tower, now guarded by human units and watched by drones that no longer hunted but protected. The war had not ended, but something deep inside it had shifted. Leo sat near a power station, wrapped in fresh bandages. His eyes closed, his body resting, but his mind still awake. He could hear footsteps around him, tools working, radios speaking orders, not in anger, but in calm. He had been seen not as an enemy, but as a voice worth hearing. Tom stood near a command tent, speaking with officers who had arrived from the capital. He explained the escape, the chase, the signal, the proof. He told them everything without hiding, without fear. His words were simple but strong, and every sentence carried weight built from truth. Rex lay beside him, tail moving slowly, eyes still watching. Soldiers passed and gave quiet nods. Some knelt and patted his head, others stood with respect. They had heard the report, they had seen the data, but more than that, they had heard the story. The story of a dog who refused to let fear control a choice. One officer placed a metal case on the table beside Tom. Not for Tom, not for Leo, but for Rex. A medal never given before, never planned, never written in the rulebooks. A symbol that action without words could change a world, that trust without voice could open locked doors. Rex did not understand medals, but he felt the warmth around him, the way people looked at him, the way Tom smiled with pride. He stood and barked. Once a sound that cut through the air like hope. Leo was cleared by medical teams and given full protection by Earth Command. He was taken not to a cell, but to a council room where he stood before leaders of both sides. A message was written in both languages, written in peace. A group of defectors from Leo's kind had come forward after the signal was sent. They had heard it across blocked channels and hidden zones. The message had reached far more than anyone expected. Peace was not made in a day, and the war did not stop with one meeting, but the first bridge had been built. And on that bridge walked not soldiers with guns, but voices with truth and hearts with purpose. Tom was asked to return to command, but he chose another path. He stayed near the outer zone, now part of a small group working to guide new talks. Guard refugee camps, help survivors. Rex remained with him, always alert, always near, always ready. Leo visited, often, sometimes alone, sometimes with others like him who had chosen a new path. They worked side by side, clearing mines, rebuilding power lines, sharing knowledge once hidden. Old Shelter became a new place of learning, where humans and aliens sat together, where young voices asked questions and old minds gave answers, where walls once used for war now held screens of history and hope. One evening, Tom stood by the ridge, watching the sunset over the valley. The sky burned orange and gold, the wind soft and kind. Rex sat beside him, and Leo stood not far, his cloak blowing gently. Tom spoke without turning, his voice low and steady. "We did not plan for this, we just followed what felt right. And somehow it led to something bigger than all of us." Leo nodded, his eyes on the horizon, his voice quiet inside. Tom's thoughts: sometimes change begins with silence, sometimes a single step makes the whole path appear. Rex barked twice, then sat still, his tail sweeping the ground slowly. Stars began to appear one by one, not as threats, not as reminders of war, but as lights that might lead to something more. And so the story found its close, not with a battle, not with an ending carved in stone, but with the opening of something new. A loyal dog, a tired soldier, and a wounded alien had met in a forest with no plan, no map, and no promise. What they found shaped the future, not through power, but through trust, through choice, through courage, and in that truth, they became more than just survivors. They became the reason the war could end, and the reason peace could begin. The END.